Yeah, we're live. Today is Thursday, March 12th. We'll go back in time there. Yeah, yesterday they announced the N10 was canceled.
Oh, I did not.
So conferences are canceling all over the place. For those of you watching the live stream, we were doing a little chit chat about events before the stream started to try and figure out what we were going to do about anything in the future. And the status is we don't know. We'll play it by ear. Um, so yeah, N10 was the first conference that Backdrop had officially sponsored, which makes me a little sad that it's been canceled. But they are trying to accommodate sponsors. They're trying to carry forward registrations and sponsorships to next year. So I think they're doing a pretty good job about trying to appease everybody and keep everybody healthy at the same time. So that's good. This meeting is the design and usability meeting, and we have only a few items on our agenda for today. The first one is a new design and or theme initiative. This is something, Luke, I think you brought up last week. So do you want to give us a little overview of what you were thinking?
Sure. Let's see, the mic's on. Basically, I'm proposing that we have some out of the box looks for Backdrop that are reminiscent of like what WordPress does, what Squarespace does, what Wix does, where somebody that just doesn't even think for a moment that they have any idea about aesthetics and can't spell CSS. It's just looking to be like, okay, I'm going to write some things and button click between three looks with zero customization. And I think we should support that. I think we should make it possible to launch a Backdrop site, even if you know nothing at all about CSS or anything like that. So, and I don't know if we have. I mean, I think like there's enough Backdrop themes out there that we've done that I feel like it's got to be low hanging fruit. I just don't know where the tree is to pick that fruit, and that's all I'm suggesting.
I totally agree. I would love it if Backdrop were more appealing to people who didn't have to write their own custom theme. I have an idea about that. Like we have this built-in theme selection tool, like our module selection tool. If we had some way to like feature 3 themes there where we could pick like from Contrib, these 3 we know are tested and have color support and work with whatever, that might be a really good way to let people choose without actually having to put those themes in core, because the selection tool is there. We don't necessarily have to support them in core, but we can say, we know this theme is good and we can recommend it. So I think we can do that in the same way we do promoted modules, which is something Gregory's been pushing for a while. We could do a promoted themes with themes that we know have that kind of support. I do think though, to get those themes to that point, we would need to choose a few and have a whole bunch of people use them and make sure they're well tested for all of the use cases that people might want to click together sites for. Make sure like all of the core layouts are supported, make sure that our new layout template builder tool looks nice when you just add rows and columns in weird places with the theme. But I would love to work on something like that. I think it's a fantastic idea for an initiative, and I'd love to see more activity around themes and design in general. I think if we also chose 3 themes, we might be able to get more designer input on like, hey, help us make this theme look more modern, or help it have a fancier sludge or something. Where I feel like when we're sort of amorphous, like we need designers, it's not as helpful as to like make this thing better to get people involved. So I like all those ideas.
Yeah, easy challenges. If you tell somebody, can you give us your best work, then everybody gets like imposter syndrome. It's like, well, maybe my best work's not good enough. Where you show them like, can you do any better than this? There'll be people like, in my sleep, are you kidding? So, clarifying the objective, I think would get us a long way.
So I agree with kind of everything I think that's been said. I don't know that these things need to be in core, but they should be easily available and like identifiable and tested. And for me, that's what an initiative would do, is it would sort of find, if it were looking at this issue, is it would say, okay, inventory what we have, what's close to maybe being ready, what needs to be done to get it ready and figure out a better way to test it and promote it. So, this is an initiative that I would be really enthused about. On the other hand, I'm really enthused about a couple of them. And I'm not sure if it reaches if we only pick 3, I'm not sure if it's in the top 3 or not, just because there's other really good ones too. So.
So just in case it gets washed out later, there's like a related thing. I don't think it's the same thing, but I think it ties in. In terms of there's commercial theme shops in a big way for WordPress, and in a smaller way, but still existing for Drupal. And I don't know anything about those. I mean, but that seems like an ecosystem that it's worth encouraging. Like I don't know how much biz dev is necessary to get a theme shop to include Backdrop as a platform, whether that's like an impossible thing or whether like, oh, okay, sure, done.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know I tend to use a lot of themes from like ThemeForest. I usually take the like standard HTML themes and then adapt them for Backdrop. And when I first started doing that, I reached out to ThemeForest and was like, hey, I noticed you have a like Drupal option and a WordPress option. What makes it where at what point do you feel compelled to add a new CMS? And for them it was market share. It's like, if we have enough demand for Backdrop, we'll put it in there. But they don't have an option for Joomla, which I thought was interesting. So like Joomla theoretically has more market share than Drupal, but people weren't asking for Joomla themes. People were asking for Drupal themes. So I think it's more about like what their customers ask for rather than like actual like adoption wise. So I think in that sense, like we really just need time. Like I imagine the future of Drupal, there will be fewer requests for that because the kinds of people who are going to be using Drupal in the future are going to want custom themes, and Backdrop's probably going to grow. And so we're going to be somewhere in the middle there, but it'll take time before we catch up. So I've been doing my part every now and then. I'm like, hey, still on Backdrop, just to let you know, just have a little blip on the radar of like, there's still heartbeat here, but it just need to be a number of people before they will consider adding it.
Right. I from that description, I think that would be a pretty difficult nut to crack. But a more approachable thing I would think would be smaller theme developers. One that I keep my eye on is, I think it's called Deb Saren. I think it's just one guy, and he's got 3 of the top 20 Drupal themes. Because they're just ready to go things. Like they're the only 3 of the top 20 that aren't starter themes. And
who is it again?
Deb Saren, I think, is his like Drupal handle, company name, moniker.
Yeah, I recognize the name from his themes.
He does like professional theme and business theme. Like they have very generic names. He I think it's he. Like is clearly trying to just drum up effort, and so all it seems to suggest that I should actually follow through. I've noted to myself that I should call him and send him an email and see if he's interested, but I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I think it's hard asking people like that to say like, hey, take these things that you've built and give them away for free. And so I would love,
he does already
do it for Drupal, yeah. But I would love to find some way. Like the thing I really like about ThemeForest is that it provides a revenue model that incentivizes people to like build good things and maintain them. And I would love to figure out a way to build something like that for Backdrop. And we talked about this in the very beginning of Backdrop about trying to find some way to like facilitate that. And so far the closest we've come in terms of actually implementing anything is setting up like a bounty program in the like contrib queue where it's like, hey, if you have $200, say I have $200 for this thing, and someone may or may not take you up on it, but there isn't any actual like facilitation of that. It might be a good time to revisit that, especially as we're trying to like foster this front end community, which we know is huge in the WordPress world, and there's a lot of business around that, to find some way to be like, allow people to accept donations through Backdrop's theme store, or I don't know, pull in content from places that isn't the public GitHub repository in sort of like a WordPress style store, or we also talked about like putting a little $sign on the bottom of your like modules page. We could do the same thing with your themes page. That's like, consider making a donation of X dollars, and then figuring out how to like actually pass that through to the people whose code you're using. Handling of money gets a little complicated, especially as like we're a nonprofit and there's fees associated with all of these transactions, and we'd have to run them all through the Software Freedom Conservancy. But I think like the conversation is important. Figuring out how to support these people is important, regardless of what our actual end result is, whether we handle money ourselves or
I
not.
have a few thoughts and some reservations on that.
Sure.
I've expressed them in the past. So I would like us to be careful. I'm a person that let me rephrase that. I personally believe that money is necessary evil. It makes the word go round. But what scares me is the moment that money comes into open source. So I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen, but we should be treading very carefully. I don't want us, we already have a project browser, and I don't want that to become an app store. I think that there is a very thin line between incentivizing people to contribute by donating money and the point that they stop contributing unless they receive money.
Yeah.
So I would like us to not reach the point where we have community members when they have received money in the past to fix a bug or improve something, and then there's issues lingering in the queue because they got used to say, hey, I can wait a little bit, someone will get upset, they will give me money. So it's a little bit, we need to be a bit careful. I'm a bit skeptical about it. I'm not saying that it's bad to have things like ThemeForest. It's a very useful thing. And I remember that you, Jen, said multiple times that what you do for your customers is you purchase a theme, even if it's for WordPress, and you just use it as a template to sort of like base your backdrop or Drupal themes off of that. And I find that very noble, very, 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 very smart as well. The other thing that I wanted to say is now that Luke has mentioned this, sort of like gears started turning. Last week I mentioned I was on a Drupal.org issue related to the color module, and they were at some point it was a long thread, and someone said having a live preview is a huger scope, and that urged me to comment and say, hey, look, we have a live preview for our themes, and here's how it looks for what is worth it. Maybe you want to consider doing that. FYI, you can spin a quick demo here. You can test it. Like, we had it for years. The reason why I'm bringing this up now is that we are in a better place than Drupal because we already have the project browser. So people can sort of like we should improve on that so that people get a better idea of themes. But what has got me thinking now is that could it be possible, the same way that we have a live preview for the colors, to have a live preview when people select a theme? It will take a lot more because it needs to download the theme and have it on the thing. But I've tested that on WordPress, I think 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. Like, they pick the theme, and I think almost instantly, just sort of like they can actually see the changes. So yeah. I don't know what it would take us to reach that point, but yeah. So these are my 2 thoughts. 1, be careful when it comes to money, and 2, maybe a live preview.
So the way the preview works in the color module at the moment is if your module supports it, you can see or if the theme supports the color module, then you can see a preview of that theme, even if it's not your default, because it's using the theme switcher, the custom theme function. I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah, and then we add a token with theme that preview equals something at the end, so they can browse the site with that theme and get a feel. I'm sure that we can do that. The thing is that the changes required for color schemes or color set is a minimal thing. Like, it's a few sets of colors that need to be applied, whereas the theme itself needs to be downloaded. It's like it's a huger thing. It needs to be downloaded, extracted. So it's a little bit more.
I still think it's not that. I mean, like, so with modules, the module installer does 2 steps where it's like, first, do you want to download it? Yes. Second, do you want to enable it? Yes. We could do the preview step. Like if you're like, download this theme, yes, then we could add a preview button. So you've already got the code. And then we could do that, like show the theme that's not enabled trick that we have already. I think it's definitely possible. It would take some work because we're not supposed to do it now, but
Yeah, and now that I think
Is that-
we are already ahead of Drupal in some way because we have the tugboat thing, and now we can install modules and themes there. So when it comes to Contrib, at least people can install a theme and see what it looks like in the tugboat demos. Something that in Drupal is much harder now. They've switched Simple Destiny to tugboat as well, but it has a lot of issues and glitches, and yeah, it doesn't work as good as our solution, or doesn't launch as fast as well either. Anyway, but yeah, it's a good discussion to be had.
yeah, I like the on-site preview more than the tugboat. I mean, testing modules and stuff. There's only so far you can go if it's not your data, especially with a theme, like trying to figure out, like, is my site going to look good in this? You really need to see your site in it. Like seeing a blank site will give you like a general idea, but it's not the same as trying it on and seeing if it fits. So I like all these ideas, but I think that if we could get a live preview on your actual site, that would be killer.
Yes. The other thing is that so a lot of these ideas coming from common problems that are coming from government agencies, because the company that I work for supports a government distribution of Drupal. But our target is small business owners, like major part of small business owners, small site owners, freelancers. So my idea of all that is that usually you sit down with your customer and you want to present the features, like what they can do, and what would be a really useful tool for a person working with Backdrop would be that they could sit down with a customer and in a few seconds just install a theme and say, hey, this is what it would look like. And then play with the colors and say, hey, this is how easy it changes. So then the job that the digital agency or the freelancer would have to do is tweak it to make sure that it works with all the aspects of the site, and work on the site building side of things, and that's it. So I think that this would be available too, and to that end, I think that tugboats, like the tugboat demos, are a big help. Like if you're trying to convince a customer and they say, all right, show me what it can do, either a theme, including a theme, or whatever functionality. I think that spinning a demo without needing an infrastructure in 6 seconds, that's awesome. Yeah. So if we were to do this live preview thing or explore the option of that, where would we start?
So the preview equals and then a theme name that you can put in that's in the path for the preview. You can actually just take that and put it on any page on your site and actually see your site in a different theme. And that works like out of the box right now. So we could, and I think that works even with disabled themes, and it'll just use the defaults for whatever their settings are. So you could just have like a page with that added to the path. And I think that would work like right now.
Okay.
Really?
So the next thing is that, is it a core theme then? Because the theme switcher, you're talking about the Contrib module, right?
No, it's in core.
Yeah, there's a hook custom theme that allows you to just change what the default theme is on one page load.
So the functionality that we used for the color module preview is already in core. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. The theme previewing thing. Okay. Yeah, I thought it was. Sorry, I thought it was it's been a while since the code review. Sorry that pull request was merged, but I thought it was sort of like color module specific. But this is good news.
You have to have the color module turned on for it to work the way I'm describing it, but you can just say preview equals like 7 as a query parameter on any page on your
Yeah.
site, and it'll just work.
Maybe that then sounds
Theory.
like it needs to be decoupled from the color module, so
Right.
that we can use it. Yeah.
And
So go ahead, Russell.
I've been thinking for a while about potentially coming up with something to make theme settings better, because currently if a new themer is coming into Backdrop or Drupal and wants to make a theme, they either have to learn the color module or they have to learn the form API.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we
this
should
is actually
really-
this is actually the ticket that I was looking in Drupal.org, making theme settings, and we have a respective issue in the field. But yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying that doesn't seem like something we should force them to learn.
So we have a few issues. There's an issue to convert the color.thing thing into actually config settings. That's what we have. That's a small step that would help developer experience at least once.
We also need
But
to
the
bring
other-
back to the color settings form, the way the
Yes,
form makes
exactly.
the full theme settings page.
So,
And
so
that-
how I posted a comment in the Zulip color ng for new generation thing. So the way that I understand it, how I read this in Drupal.org is that it reads a YAML file with settings, and then it automatically builds the form for them or something like that. And there's a 5-minute video as well displaying, showing that that functionality, how it happens, how it works.
That sounds crazy.
Yeah, so it's like, it's really awesome in the things like the moment that you have those settings, the horizontal tab that generates the form automatically becomes available, and the theme settings, they use text fields, but the theme settings, the color settings are populated automatically based on that YAML thing.
Is there like a set of parameters? You don't know.
No,
I gotta go
it's
look at
actually
it.
based, I think it's based on, and this is another discussion that we had with Peter as well, and the whole implementation is based on CSS variables.
Yeah, I went and
So-
I went and read through the module, and what it does is when you save it, it creates like a config file that has your settings, and then on every page load, what it does is it builds a new CSS file that has your custom CSS properties set and just inserts that into your page.
Hmm.
And then your theme just uses your custom CSS variables.
anyways,
A couple of quick thoughts, one of which, this is all great. Having a theme previewer, though, isn't that helpful if we don't have some good themes to preview. On the other hand, an easy ability to preview them might stimulate development. So it's hard to say. But the question, I think the question for right now is like where this fits in priorities. And I actually think it's pretty high. Actually, the more we talk about it, the more I kind of think that I would put this in my top 3 in just dealing with the theme issue, because I still believe a lot of people come, they install Backdrop. You know, they are that sort of site builder or end user type, and they just can't, you know, there aren't the themes available right now. And I think it's an adoption blocker. So, but I'm curious what others think in terms of like, not just like, is this important, but how does it, like, if we looked at the other, I was just trying to call up what our other initiatives are, how we think this fits in terms of priority with some of what else has been proposed.
So as the priority writer, the initiative initiator, I mean the thing I really wanted to try to do was to make a low scope option. I mean there's lots of things we can do, but the MVP for this, it is like a 1-hour task of this theme, that theme, that theme, put in a README or something, right? Like just something so that beginning people have someplace to start and don't end up, you know, tossed out into the oceans of possibilities. Just like, here, if you don't know what you're doing, just, you know, choose A, B, or C. So So as we contemplate other ideas, I want to make sure that doesn't get irrevocably packaged into this and make the cost of this initiative higher than I think it needs to be.
Well,
I think that's a great point. I think we could definitely come up with a low scope version of this. I really think that was a good idea. The next step up would be like hard coding those 3 themes, like 3 contrib themes, and say like if these themes are available, like offer them first, put them at the top of the list. I think that would be a perfect start, and then figuring out how to do a live preview would be the next step, and then just I think you're right. There's a lot of like low hanging first steps we could do here.
And
And
there's some things.
it doesn't have to be a competition. Like I just named 3 as sort of like the minimum viable momentum thing. But once we kind of establish what the bar is for, you know, ready to go thing, I'm fine if we have 5,000 of them. But you know, just we need at least 3 in order for it to be viable.
Some of the things may not require coding even. Like yes, we need some features to facilitate better sort of like tools for the people that will build it. I agree with Tim that we need more themes in order to have a pool of themes so that people can test. So one of the tasks might not be even writing code. It might be evangelizing so that people start building or sharing their themes. That could be a low hanging fruit. Yeah, this is a great site. You've added it to the the showcase thing. Can you talk to your customer and ask them if this could be open sourced? That could be a thing, like an outreach to the community to say if the themes that they're using for their customers can be considered for yeah. And yeah, I don't know how this would work. Like what the first step would be. Maybe Tim is a better person for that. It's like he's good with.
Well, I'll just say, initiatives aren't the only tool in our toolbox to pursue this, right? Somebody, you could just, like that MVP that you just described, Luke, is not an initiative task, right? That's an individual can sit down and do that anytime. You could
It's too easy to be initiative.
Well, that MVP, right? And that might be the precursor to an initiative, right? Is that somebody just sit down and do that work. I mean, I did some of this work before, and that, like, I created a database or a spreadsheet that listed all of the themes, the contrib themes available at the time. That was 6 months ago, and like what the status of each one was, whether it had color module support, and that document's still available.
Wait, really? Where's that document?
I will find it for you after the meeting. If I try looking for it now, I'll get lost, but I've done that.
I'll start with that, and I'll take it another step. I'll implement that.
Whether or not this gets to be picked as an initiative, there are low-hanging fruit things that individuals can do, and you could advocate for it, right? Maybe that's here. But pick a particular sub piece of this. But on the other hand, I think actually making an initiative might be worth it.
Yes, so there's the satellite initiatives that fit into that place. There's already some things that have been sort of like proposed for an initiative that could be one of the pieces of the puzzle. And here's my thought on that. It's all good and well that we decided that, and I said we are at a much better place than Drupal because we have some facilities that would help make that easier. But what I should have said is for people that already know Drupal. And what we can do is, one thing that Jen, I need to sort of like quote Jen, it's her line, put things where people expect to find them. So we need to sort of like put the dots together on a trail, sort of like we need to figure out what the trail of the journey is. Someone opens the theme page, the appearance page. We need to have a link that, hey, do you want to install more modules? I know that we have a tab there that says install new themes, but I don't know how we can sort of like make that more obvious. Lead the people to the theme browser, the project browser and the theme bit, and then the bit of the puzzle that was talking about, look, is promoted themes. We have discussed about the idea of promoted modules. Maybe we want to promote themes, like have some things at the top of the list. I don't know how that would work. And this is not initially dev work. It might be user interface mockups. So you can work on that. If you can think of better ways to lead people to the interface where they choose and preview themes, then that'd be awesome. Maybe then we can start off with that. And another tool would be a blog post. Maybe
Yeah.
instructions on how to do that. Yeah, or maybe a blog post where, hey, we're thinking to do that thing about releasing themes. What does the community? Or it could be a forum post, right? Or a combination of a blog post asking people to chime in on a forum subject which says, how do you feel about the idea of open sourcing the themes that you've already created for your customers, for your existing customers?
Well, now that I know that Tim's spreadsheet exists, this becomes much more plausible. Because I mean, this is actually where I am now, right? Like I have my personal site that you know, lutemccormick.com is a backdrop site, and I think it's using Basis, like it's using like an out of the box theme, because I'm in some sense the character that I'm describing. But I mean, I know CSS. I've taught CSS classes, but like I don't have my own sense of aesthetic. So anytime like I can change anything, I just don't know what to change it to. And so I really want to pick things, and then if I see something that I want to change, I can do it. But like, you know, starting, you know, with a you know, I don't know how to create a design system for myself, and that's kind of what we, I think, sort of implicitly expect people to do to start a site, and that seems like a high barrier. So I'll go through Tim's list, pick one of them for my own, and see if I can put that together. And that actually leads into, not relevant to this meeting, but I've been contemplating writing up the story that Gregory just described of here's how from scratch to create a backdrop site if you don't know what you're doing. And see if I can write it to the perspective of like my students when I taught my web course who didn't know how web pages were made. So I'm like, you know, kind of walk them through. Here's some defaults you can use. Feel free to change them, but you don't have to.
So Luke, I'm going to suggest some next steps. I think if somebody had the time to jot down notes from this meeting, we've thrown out a lot of ideas. Well, like, I'm going to direct this at you, Luke. If you could write like a blog post, I think, say like what your idea was, summarize this meeting, and then list all of the resources that we've mentioned that are out there already, like my spreadsheet, like you know, whatever other tools, even maybe link to some Drupal issues that are related, and just have that be a summary. And that could be the foundation for an initiative if, you know, if it happens. But it's still going to be valuable no matter what, and it's going to be a resource for anybody who wants to pursue this, and certainly people. Yeah. So I would say that's
okay. I mean, my thought is to add it into the thread for the forum initiative thing, but do you think that's too low visibility? You want me to make
I would
more bells and whistles on that?
I would say either or, and like the lower barrier would be to just add it all to the thread. I think actually doing a blog post would be slightly better, but also slightly more work. So maybe start by just getting it into the thread, and then like if you've got the energy, a blog post I think would also be like a nice summary.
Look, I'm all about creating a deliverable. So I'll start it in the thread, and if it looks like there's enough material for there, I can repackage it as a blog post.
I just pinged all of you guys and Zulip on the thread where we sort of like had this conversation, and there's links to those the module and the issues, the Drupal.org issues that I mentioned.
And link to the video of this meeting as a resource, because we talked a lot about it.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're gonna have time to talk about anything else.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing about issue 2553. This is the move clear log messages button. This is an issue that is like not very important, but apparently a lot of people feel very strongly about it. I think we have like a couple of follow-up issues that we know we need to take care of. Things like moving confirm forms into modals, and the ability to, what's the other thing? Where are they? I don't even have the, here we go.
What was, sorry, Jen, what was the ticket, the number again?
2553. convert all confirmation pages to dialogues and make submit buttons sticky. So we have two follow-up issues that may help that particular problem. And then it looks like the only other thing that we've talked about doing is moving the button that's currently at the top of the page to the bottom of the page. And I think that that's all we have. I'm not sure we have consensus. We have majority people who feel that that would be better. And I think that we should just move the button and then leave the rest until after the other issues are resolved. And once the other issues are resolved, we should revisit this issue because it's gotten way too many comments for not being super high priority. And I would love to have all the people who are passionately involved in that issue also be passionately involved in other issues. I know that everybody has a lot of other things on their plate. So I just wanted to say that here in case anyone's watching this issue and feels really strongly about it. We could also do nothing, which is the other option, and just close that issue and say we'll return to it after the other two are done. But
yeah, we don't need to close it. I'm against closing issues unless they're solved.
Okay. Well,
It's currently blocked on the others, so we can just leave it there and say either
the
postponed
only
or
problem with leaving as it is that there's like 90 comments on it. And so when we return to it, that means everybody's going to need to read 90 comments on it. Maybe we can just update
summarize it to a new one.
with where we're leaving it now, as opposed to where it was like 4 weeks ago or whatever, when we started having another 50 comments added, and put some link to like until X comment, this is where so people can start reading there. But yeah, I was thinking like if we could do something and close this issue, and then we'd have those other two, that would be enough. If we don't do anything, maybe we shouldn't close the issue.
Well, I usually when an issue gets closed, either fixed or not, I out of habit go back because people also mention other issues or tasks just in words. We should follow up to do this. So I usually create tickets for that if they have not been done. But I'm afraid that if I'm not there to do it, maybe no one will.
Well, these two already have.
But yes, they do have issues already. So maybe we can close it, and then once those fixed, so someone remembers this issue and goes back to it and says, "Hey, we can do this now," or something.
Okay.
Yeah. Or we can summarize this thing, what the decision was. Like create a new issue and say this started off there, the discussion is there, but the decision has been made to first address these two and then combine them in order to sort of like address this one.
Yeah.
I
Or
can
we
do that.
Close this issue and create another one that's like the thing we didn't do. Like if the thing is like move the thing to the top of the page and we move to the bottom of the page, let's have another discussion, moving back to the top, whatever. But yeah, let's I'd like to see this get some progress somehow. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Or gets closed, yeah.
Or
cool. Yes, I know.
something. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap up this meeting. The only other thing, one thing I really wanted to do is do introductions, which I totally forgot at the beginning. So maybe now that we're ending the meeting, everyone just say what their name is and where they're from, and then we can wrap up and start the next meeting. So I'll go first. Again,
hang on.
Joseph wants to say something. Sorry.
Oh,
He said, hang on.
all right, go ahead.
All right. On the color preview thing,
Yes.
if you go view a theme settings that has color support, right above the preview, there's a link that says open preview in new window or in new tab or something. If you click that, it takes you to your home page with that theme as the default.
Yep.
But it doesn't actually change the default. It's just you're seeing your site with a different theme.
Yeah, you're browsing your site with a different thing. That's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all.
Do you want to give me a quick introduction?
I'm Tim. I'm here from St. Paul, Minnesota. That's all for today.
Okay. Greg, you're unmuted.
Yeah. And I'm Greg, joining in from Melbourne. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next meeting.
Luke.
I'm Luke McCormick. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Joseph
I'm Joseph. I'm from Las Vegas.
and Peter. Peter might not be with us in a minute.
We might not know he's muted.
Peter's participating from Estonia, isn't he?
Perfect.
Yes, yes, and it's like night, 10 or 11 p.m. or something. Yeah, so.
All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up this meeting. We will start the developer meeting in a minute, and I'll introduce ourselves all over again. So thanks for coming, everyone.